YouTube, how the heck you doing? This is Corey with Watcher Realms. Now we are back with another one. We are in the Gladiator Gauntlet as per usual, and we are against Soggy Boys. Interesting name. Now it's always fun whenever we start to begin the Gladiator Gauntlet run because it's bracket seeded, so highest seed versus lowest seed, and so at least there's some interesting results, right? I'm actually mad because two of us lost attacks, and that was a little bit troll. And then Mr. Hot Sauce. Mr. Hot Sauce. It's okay though. It happens. It's the first round of gauntlets. Who really cares? Anyways, let's go ahead and get straight into our attacks and see how he did. I'm gonna be very honest. There's really not too much to learn from this. Just because there's such a disparity. But I mean, I guess in a way there is something to learn. And it really just comes down to like what units are popular, what units work in placements, right? So if you're like a beginner getting into Guild Guild, hopefully this video helps you. If you're obviously an experienced seasoned vet or whatever for Guild Guild, don't expect anything. Okay, so when it comes to like building a team, right? This is not the worst, right? I'm just gonna pause it here, but this isn't bad per se, right? You have a lot of really strong units in general. You have a Silas, he's a strong PvE unit. You have Arrogance, a very strong PvE unit. Brokir, strong PvE unit. And Praetus, a very strong PvE unit. Now, one of the things when you're building a Guild team is you almost need a healer that provides you with some form of revive. So we're really looking at like Carnelian is tier 0, and then you're looking at like Lily that's tier 0.5, and then you're looking at like Ezrein, for example, as your like other option. But even then, Ezrein's fallen out of the meta. You have like Narissa, Dasomi, Diao to some extent, that are prevalent. So those are kind of like your main sources of healing. So Hollow isn't necessarily that relevant. One other thing here is placements. Now, placements are a really, really important thing, especially for Guild v Guild, because whenever you go ahead and put a unit on a platform that's adjacent to the tank, right, they will always be susceptible to being hit by mages, bookkeepers, right? So that's exactly what happens here. We drop our double mages, and the mages are going to go and force the hit onto the Praetus, and they take out the Arrogance that's also here. Once that happens, this entire map just opens up because all that needed to kind of cause all this to happen is really just a unit being placed here. If a unit was placed essentially here, it would have probably been fine. Silas was fine. It really just comes down to this tower right here. Set it all up for the recipe for disaster. And so we drop the double bookkeepers, and they just clean house. They take out the entire map. I don't think a single one of them dies here. And it just allows us to kind of do whatever. He even kind of troll it in terms of like the drop order. I drop dogs and healers. But it really just comes down to like the placement of your units is probably the most valuable and important thing for Guild v Guild. Yeah, it's just such a mandatory thing. And then the other team that we're going to go ahead and kind of show is kind of following a similar vein here. So with this, YouTube, super quick, Moonton and Smile1 are obviously partners, right? And Smile1 is currently doing some really amazing packs. You have the ability to get the 12 rare summoning crystals plus some stamina and some gold for about $4.49. They have some rare summoning discount bundles, which are really nice. Even they have some big packs when it comes for rare summoning crystals and ancient crystals if you are interested in going ahead and doing so. If you want to go and get any of these, you can go ahead and click the link in the description below, and you'll get access to the shop where you can go and buy these things. See ya. They also paired a lot of relatively strong units together to build a second team. Now, one of the things with Hex in particular that's different than Praetus is Hex will go invisible whenever he gets hit, right? It'll trigger one of his passives. So that's a good thing. However, it's pretty much the exact same boat here. And Ingrid as the Lord also kind of puts this team into a little bit of a like identity crisis to some extent, right? Because You have Wukong, that's a Watcher, and he's a Nightmare faction unit. And then you have Torador and all these other units that really don't synergize that well in terms of their faction. Now, because of that, once we go ahead and take out the Hex, there's not really a substantial amount of damage just in general on the map when it comes to anti-air. So it allows our flyers to pretty effortlessly just kind of cruise through here and just put a lot of pressure on the Wukong, taking them out, putting pressure on the on the Ingrid, taking her out. And then even Elwyn goes down as well because of the double bookkeepers. Now, it really just comes down to like identity crisis. Whenever you're going and building a team for Guild v Guild, it's typically mandatory that you have, I would say, 4 of the 5 units in the same faction. The only time where it's okay to like break it is if the unit is just like absolutely godlike. Wukong kind of fits that mold in some teams. It's usually your healer that tends to not be the faction ally. It's 9 times out of 10 the healer, because you're kind of forced into a Lily, which is going to be Esoteric Piercer, or you're looking at Carnelian, that's just going to be chaotic. So that's the issue there, right? You kind of need all your units to be faction allies just to reap all the benefits. Alright, now this next one is going to be an Ingrid Valara team. Now, another thing here that's a little bit tricky, right? You're stacking up a lot of really good units, like Ingrid and Valara are very strong units in general, and also Torador is a very strong unit as well. However, Ingrid is a Watcher, Valara is an Esoteric Arbiter. So even with your 2 main sources of damage, they're kind of conflicting overall in terms of faction. And so only one of them is really getting the boost, which is Ingrid, when truth be told, you probably want the Valara being the unit that is getting the boost just because of how strong Valara is in particular. So we just do the simple Grotesque Fiend strat where we drop the bugs into the Grotesque Fiend, and because of how Valara functions, in which she will go and knock units backwards, it allows us to effectively have a lot of freedom here. Because if we wanted to, we could have dropped a healer, for example, and had the Valara push the Grotesque Fiend into the healer and giving him some further sustain. But as it stands, once we took out the Torador, and because Valara is on the platform tile, it allows us to kind of just do whatever we necessarily want, which is just drop the double dogs and just pass through the map there. So I wasn't really concerned with any form of damage that could have been shot out by the Valara. Just because she's not in a faction. So she's missing that boost. A Praetus, Wukong, Torador, Lily, and I team. Now, when I see this, I kind of just automatically think, well, there's some damage here, but the main anti-air threat is really just Praetus. And if my flyers can tank the Praetus at his initial point, so before he starts stacking up all those additional orbs, which he gets additional scaling and damage from, then I should be good to just win, right? So that's exactly what I do. I just drop the double flyers because I'm going to take advantage of Praetus as he is weakest, which is in the very beginning of the fight. And the goal is for these flyers here to pretty much survive the damage coming from Praetus. And if they can just take out the backline, then we pretty much should win comfortably. That's exactly what happens. We take out the Praetus, we take out the Wukong. So both damage dealing threats are now off the map. And so we just get to pretty much do whatever we want. So what I do is I just drop the Grotesque strat, I drop the double bugs, and then the whole purpose of the double bugs is really just because I want to just crack all the crystals here. That's my main concern. And honestly, I had a lot of flexibility because I could have done the healer, I could have done the Grotesque Fiend, I could have done the dogs. It didn't matter because the whole thing is just get rid of the eye crystals because eye is no longer on the map. Anything that we do is just going to move past the Torador, especially with that placement. Torador would have needed to be one placement up or placed right here in order to start doing block. But generally speaking, it would have been better just for him to be here. But yeah, this really just comes down to whenever you're building a team, the biggest thing I can say is make sure they're faction allies. Anyways, see ya.